Hello friends, in this video I'm going to show you my solution for providing electric power to equipment installed on a Canopy of RV-12. That video will include details of the components I used, where to get them, and how to install them. By the way, this solution is probably applicable to other tip-up canopies design, not only RV-12, so keep watching. Now, I have a couple of devices I have installed on the glare shield that require electric power. I have liquid-filled compass with some backlight for night flying, and I also have this little fan, about 50mm fan, installed over this GoPro to keep it cool. Very often when we fly in hot weather and the sun shines on this GoPro, the camera just shuts down. I have another camera installed at the back of the plane here on the frame, and having a fan over the camera definitely solves overheating problem. I never had this camera shut down itself when we fly in hot weather, and it just runs forever. The solution takes advantage of C1206 guide plate on RV-12 tip-up canopy. It looks like a perfect place to install sliding connector with matching spring connector installed inside C1207 guide block. There are 12 simple steps to build a connector, and we will go through every one of them in detail. The key component for this connector is the printed circuit board. The easiest way to make this board is to order it from one of the online PCB manufacturers. Ordering the PCB board is pretty simple process. The link in the description for this video will take you to experimentalavionics.com website to the page dedicated to Canopy Power Connector. On this page you'll find a link to the Gerber file. Just download the file and we will use it to order the PCB board. To order PCB board we will use JLC PCB. There are other online PCB manufacturers. In this instance I decided to use this one. Just go to jlcpcb.com website and log in. If you don't have an account there, just create one. If you are a new customer for them, they will give you about $5 or $10 voucher that will cover most of the cost of this order. Once you are in, click on the Instant Quote button. You'll get to the main order form. Now click on Add Gerber File button. Select the zip file you just downloaded from Experimental Avionics website. You will see the preview of the PCB board you are about to order. By default, the color of the PCB boards are usually green. We need to change it to black. Minimum number of boards to order is usually 5. So order 5, share them with a friend. Leave all other order parameters as they are. Now click Save to the cart button and pay for your order. And about a week later you will receive your PCB boards. While you're waiting for your PCB boards to arrive, go on AliExpress and order a few spring compression connectors. The part number is BC-70-4PD. While you are there, also order some resettable fuses. The part number is MF-MSMF075. They are 750 mA resettable fuses. Make sure they are rated for 24 volts. The fuses are optional, but it's a good idea to have them. You will need 3 or 4 of them, depending on how you want to wire your connector. Also order some 4-pin JST connectors, both male and female. When you have your PCB boards delivered, you need to cut them along the red lines as shown on the screen. When you have your PCB boards cut up, you can solder relevant components on them. Before soldering spring compression connector, make sure locating pins are removed. My connector wired to have 3 power lines and 1 ground line, so I only need 3 fuses installed. The rightmost set of pads has a piece of wire soldered instead of the fuse. Install JST male connector on the same side where spring compression connector is installed. In this step, install JST connector on the sliding connector board. In step number 4, remove the guide block C1207, this one. In this step, make a cutout in the guide block C1207 on its inboard side. The cutout is slightly wider than the connector itself to allow for small adjustments when we position connector against the sliding connector. In this step, remove the C1206 guide plate. Use your favorite rivet removal tool for that. Click the 1206 guide plate, the spacer and the sliding connector to the canopy frame. Check and see if this slot should be widened a bit to allow for the guide plate to go through the slot with the connector board on it. Most likely you will need to cut out about 3 mm of the inner side of the slot. In step 7, install the compression connector board on the guide block. I drilled about 1.5 mm pilot holes for each screw in such position that the edge of the board aligns with the top of the guide block. To attach the board I use 3 mm screws. They are about 10 mm long. In the later steps we'll be moving the compression connector board left and right a little bit to align the compression connectors with the sliding connector. In the step 8, install guide block assembly back to the fuselage. Ensure that 1206 guide plate and attached connector go into the slot and the 1207 guide block freely. If required, make adjustments to the slot and 1207 guide block. In this step, we ensure alignment between sliding connector and the compression connector. To check alignment, we'll use whiteboard marker. We will paint the pads of the sliding connector. We'll open and close Canopy a couple of times to ensure that compression connector leaves marks on the pads of the sliding connector. After the first trial, the compression connector left the tracks a little bit to the right of the pads of the sliding connector, so we will need to move the compression connector assembly a little bit forward, like that way. So I need to loosen these two screws a little bit and move the board closer to the left edge of the guide block. And this was the reason why we needed to make cutout a little bit wider than the compression connector itself, so we could make these adjustments, we could make this board move back and forth inside the guide block. Now we go through the same process again. We attach the sliding connector assembly back to the frame and paint it with whiteboard marker and try to close Canopy once or twice and see where the marks are now. Well, as you can see, the marks are in a better position now. Not quite there yet, they're not quite in the middle, they just touching the edge of the pads. We're almost there, we just need to move the compression connector pad a little bit further that way, to the front. Now, as you can see, marks are perfectly aligned. So now we can rivet the sliding connector assembly to the canopy frame. Before riveting the sliding connector assembly back to the canopy frame, I recommend to put some epoxy between guide plate and the connector boards. Make it like a sandwich. Before we apply epoxy on any of these parts, we need to remove solder mask from the spacer, both sides, and the back side of the sliding connector board. This side, not this side, not where the pads are, only on this side. Just use the sandpaper and get rid of this black stuff. Before application of epoxy, parts should be cleaned up, paint removed from the guide plate, solder mask removed from both sides of the spacer. Also, solder mask should be removed from the back side of the sliding connector. So it looks black where the pads are and kind of green yellow where the solder mask used to be. Now the sandwich made of the guide plate and the sliding connector is set with epoxy. Now we can rivet it back to the canopy frame. To rivet the assembly back to the canopy frame, I use the rivets supplied with RV-12 kit. These rivets referred as LP4-5. They are long ones, like longer than LP4-3, like quite a bit longer. Now all we have to do is to connect JST connectors, and that's it. Make sure the wires don't interfere with this guide block. It comes very close to it, but it seems to be okay. Make some adjustments as required. And verify continuity of electric circuit between compression connector and the slide connector. The wire between the sliding connector and the glare shield runs inside the square tube of the canopy frame and exits through the round opening near the glare shield. The wire for the spring connector is hidden in this channel and runs all the way to the instrument panel. As you probably know, RV-12 canopy is a little wobbly when it's being opened and closed. Sometimes the sliding connector scratches against the inner edge of the slot. To prevent that, I glued a piece of 4mm PVC tube on the inner edge of the slot. So now, as soon as canopy is closed and the master switch is on, we have a magnetic compass illuminated and the GoPro camera remains cool to take cool videos. This is all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.